Eric Antonette, thank you so much for joining me today on the ABCs of Leadership. I'm so honored to have you here today. You and I did an interview back a while. We met in Heartcore Leadership back in January of 2023, and you were a powerful coach in that leadership group. And now, since for the past few months, we've been together on the Global Game Changers team in the next level leadership. So welcome, Eric. Thank you for joining us today for the letter G. Can you tell us why you picked the letter G and how that what leadership principle you're gonna speak to us about today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, Trina. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your beautiful face. I chose G because, yes, you get to receive that.
I know. I'm like, I'm gonna receive that compliment.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you for that generous compliment. I love it.
yeah, because that's here what we're here to talk about. G for generosity. So I get to be generous with my words and my compliments because I'm here to talk about generosity and what I'm leaning into. And that's exactly what I'm leaning into in PhD 9 and by deciding to co-captain HCL 48.
And some
Generosity.
people watching this might not know really what that is. So, but it's a leadership program that requires a lot of generosity. Like you're volunteering your time for like 4 months.
100%.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a big container of students. So there'll be about 150 students in this container learning leadership. Over 20 coaches, probably over 25 coaches that my captain and I get to lead. So it is a big responsibility. And as you mentioned, it's all volunteer. And that's how I get to be in generosity. That's why I am choosing generosity. And for me, generosity means I get to give my gifts and I get to be used up. And some people have sort of a negative connotation of being used, and I get it, right? I know how we can use each other in not so great ways, but for me, being used up means that I get to empty everything that I have, empty all of my gifts into all of the people that I get to work with and all those coaches and all those students. I get to empty my gifts and get them to be used because I get to be generous.
I love that. And I love because what's coming to me is the gardener theme, which I'm a farm girl. I can't help it. I can't go anywhere and not plant seeds because really, when you say you use up all your gifts, you're using up all your seeds. And so it's like, because I experienced this, like my gifts in hardcore leadership exploded. And I've seen that, my gift of being able to like see people for who they are and love. Like, so your generosity and all the other coaches that planted into me are seeding. So you use yourself up, but now you're planting and like now you're reaping in abundance, right? And you get filled back up, there more grows. So that's cool.
Yeah, 100%. And I get to, also add that the coaches that are coming also are leaning into the same thing. They're all leaning into generosity. This is not paid either. None of the coaches are paid. None of the captains are paid. And we just get to be there being of service. And so those two words, being used and being in service, is how I see generosity. I get to be in service to serve those people who need the gifts that I have. And they get to be used. They get to be all used up. That's why I have them. They're not here for me to keep. They're not here for me to be selfish with, right? To hold on to. I get to share them. I get to share what I have to say, and I get to share my gifts. And anything other than that to me is being selfish. So that's not being generous.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like that 100% lands for me. Like people try and tell me to focus on myself. I'm like, sure, I'll go for a walk and I'll like eat good food, but then like there's a giving that there's just such an opportunity and a joy that comes when you really see, when you understand that who we are and we can always replenish from like a living well of goodness, right? Like there's always more goodness to receive for ourselves, so we don't ever have to be scared. Well, I don't know. It
Let's talk
depends.
about that, Trina,
Yeah,
because
because some people do it in a way that
right,
drains them. And
yes,
I think there's a trick and an awareness to that, to not be drained, right?
right. So being generous doesn't mean I just give all my gifts away too. It also means I get to be generous with me, right? I get to be
Okay.
generous to fill myself up
Okay.
so that I have the energy and the time to be able to give my gifts away. Because if I'm not generous, filling myself up by taking care of myself, whether that's through prayer, meditation, fitness, mental health, emotional health,
Mhm.
if I'm not keeping up that part of myself, then I'm empty, right? And I have
Yeah.
nothing to give. So
Yeah.
generosity also works both ways. And so when I say selfish, again, even selfish can have a negative connotation, right? Some people think, well, you're selfish, that's not a good thing. But anything in balance is still good, right? If I am selfish to the point where I know I need something to be in a good space in order to be giving, then I get to receive that. I get to be generous with myself in order to take care of myself, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. I get to receive and be generous with myself so that I have the energy to be able to give my gifts away. So
Mhm.
selfishness is not a bad thing, right? So when we think of selfishness, it's
Yeah.
not good, right or wrong.
Self-care, right? Like you can use some people would be less triggered if you just call it self-care, which is really the same thing.
Right, right. And we all need a healthy dose of self-care.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we will be out of balance ourselves and we won't be in that, we won't be able to serve. We won't be able to be
Um,
used up. We won't be able to be generous.
that is really interesting. I'm just gonna do a play on words here because it's coming to mind for fun. Because it's like, because earlier this year, like when I stepped into hardcore, I just felt like was reminded, I guess, of the biblical story of the calling of the apostles. Of like, Jesus comes along to enlist these guys. He's like, guys, I got work for you to do. And they're like, we're just busy trying to fish. Like they're trying to catch these fish, right? And they're like, we've been trying all night and we can't catch anything, so we don't have time to help you. And he's like, okay, I got like, let me help you out here. Like just cast your net again and it fills up with fish. So it's like and then they were able to have enough money to sell the fish, have enough money to go and give in generosity. And I've talked to other people. I was doing the play on word because it's like sell the fish. So when you give in generosity, when you're ready to serve God's people, like to serve your brothers and sisters in this world, there's if you're open to receiving, then like as you give, you get poured into. And I was talking to, because one of our other coaches, Ryan Lynch from H Cell 40, he was saying that, right? Like he's like, yeah, I keep coming back to coach, and now I'm up to like $1 million and $1 million a year in annual commissions at his real estate business. And I'm like, wow, like that's a blessing, right? As you give in generosity and you learn those leaderships and like hone them, it really does teach you the skills that are going to help you to fill your boat with the fish so you can sell them to be able to serve.
I totally get where Ryan's coming from. I wish I could say I was making $1 million a year
I know,
myself,
don't we all?
but I'm
He's a
not.
game changer, or
But I
he's
do
like a
get what he's
go-getter.
talking about because each time that I have come into coach, because I've coached 3 times also in generosity, right? Not being paid.
Mhm.
Each time I did that, my business leveled up and leveled up and leveled up. And that's exactly what I experienced. I experienced the same thing. I got poured into also. And the gifts that I got to learn through expanding by coaching, because each time each experience of coaching was different. Each time that I did that, my gifts grew, and just by me being in the practice of doing it, and and then my business leveled up, and now I'm at the point today where I don't want any more work. Like I have all the work that I need outside of doing the volunteer stuff that I do, that I don't need more than what I have. So I was also poured into in the same way that Ryan was, just different
Mhm.
monetary amounts, but definitely poured into in the same way. So I totally understand where that's coming from. So it is reciprocal. When we give, we also receive, and that's a common sentence that we hear, right? When you give, you receive, and it is so true. It is so
If you're
true.
open to it, because you can give and have a wall not being willing to receive. I've actually experienced that, and through the leadership um I feel like I got a little bit underneath that program and had some training, like uh just even going to the live events, right? And I'm just like give, and then I'm like somebody comes up to me and like just starts, blessing me and speaking into me, and it was just such a that's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we get to practice receiving too, and this is what helps us to give more." Um, so I wanted to go to like, so what? Because I'd like to hear from your perspective. You are coming into this to give in generosity. What are you seeing in terms of like the change that's happening in the people in leadership? That you're like, so you're coaching them, and what's happening for them that you're seeing that keeps you coming back over and over?
Expansion. I want to say expansion. They get to expand their awareness of who they are and who they get to be in order to also be a leader and to be of service in the world expands.
Mhm.
And that's part of my mission here. It's not just being in generosity, but it's also to create leaders in the world who will also be in generosity.
Yeah.
And we get to give it back, right? We get to give the gift back and
Yeah.
the learning back and the experience back.
Mhm.
So that's my wish for anybody who comes to do the training, is that they also get to be a leader, and they also get to expand. They get to expand a knowledge of, I mean, I've seen so many things, Trina, of people who have come and had breakthroughs in so many different areas of their life, whether that's in their personal relationships or in business or in
Mhm.
spirit, or just, in their way of expanding their thinking.
Yeah.
Um, that's what they're coming for, is to have breakthroughs, to get unstuck from where they are in their life. And when I came into HCL, when I came into leadership, I actually had no idea how stuck I was until I actually started to do the training. And part of me realized at that point in time that, yeah, like I am actually stuck in my head, and I'm too analytical, and I'm not moving forward. So it really opened my eyes to my way of being that was not working for me.
Yeah.
And and so that, there was a leveling up that happened there. And then, like I said, when I started to coach, there's another level of opening up that happens, and another expansion of awareness that happens, and the growth continues. And part of the lesson for us is to learn that the transformation never ends, right? We are continuously transforming and growing if we're
Yeah.
open to that. Like you used a great word about open to receiving, right? Well,
Yeah.
am I open to transforming and becoming better every day? Because
Yeah.
that's what we also get to be open to be doing.
I love that. That is so awesome. Yeah, because there's such a growth that happens in each of us. And as a community and just in our willingness, in our ability to give more, right? I have way more to give now. The thing that happened for me that I have been telling people, it's like I came into leadership in January and like my heart, like I left and my heart was like warmer, right? So people say your heart opens up, but it's like I could feel like kind of heat around my heart more, like of an open heart. And a couple months later, it's still there. I'm like, okay, this wasn't just a weekend seminar, right? And it's cool because it's given me the ability to love more, right? I just remember one of our exercises, and after that, like I could go into public and you just see people differently, right? You kind of take the blindfolds off and you see how like really magical and incredible and divine they really are, how gifted people are and how, godlike really. So I wanted to talk about that really quick or to transition into that because down in so we went to a live event, a zone event with Heartcore Strong, Heartcore leadership, and so many of the testimonials. Shanda didn't even plan this, but she just is like gets people to talk to pop up, and the people were like, "I got to have a conversation with my dad," right? And like and now you know that that was something that wasn't happening, and that's a major pain point, right? And there was more than one that talked about like their relationships, their like most deep important relationships that have been broken are repairing. And you and I are in like in our global game changers team, we're on the relationships captain, and we have incredible opportunities to use those gifts. Like I just see, I love watching you at work, helping people move through whatever they show up with that's not working in the relationship. And you just like through your training and expertise, you always have a way to lead them through it. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I want to say I'm not alone, because likewise, you have amazing gifts, and we had a tag team effort today of being able to support um, those who come for relationship support, and you were also awesome today, and
Oh, thank you.
you provide such value to those who come and need
Oh,
support.
thank you. That was a beautiful moment. So just today we had a lady show up. She wasn't even really sure what the whole what is this relationships captain thing? It's just on my calendar. I'm gonna come check it out. And she showed up and she opened up about a broken relationships, kind of pre-holiday. I gotta go hang out with the family for this short period of time. And it doesn't, that's not an exciting thing always. And we were able to really, I feel like we gave her some real amazing tools and helped her like reprogram things to look at it differently, understand that the way that people were, she felt like people were questioning her judgment. And we helped her see like, oh, that's love. Like, yes, they're projecting fear in you, but underneath that some, it's just because they care. It's just because they love. And then in that moment when we're in that meeting with her, she gets a text from a friend who had just lost her dad. And to me, that was just such a divine moment to be able to like that she wasn't alone for that moment when she got the text, like that we were able to be there as a team to be like, we got you, you got this, like we love you, you're not alone, and send her off with some renewed hope and wisdom to be able to seed that into the next, to ripple that down to the next person.
Yeah, I know you believe in spirit, and you're right. She came to the meeting not even knowing why she was there, just kind of showing up the way she showed up, and yeah, she got some wonderful support to support her with her family relationships from us, and then, as you mentioned, that text came through, and
Mhm.
yeah, her friend's father died, and I just like to believe in the synchronicity, and I believe that spirit called her there, and we were there to support her. It was really, really a
Mhm.
divine moment, a really special moment where she got to be held and supported in what she was dealing with. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's an honor really to do the work and to be part of that process, to be there for somebody else in generosity, right? Because
Yeah.
that's where we were.
That is so true. It is such an honor. It is an honor. Isn't that cool? I met this like that word is coming up for me more, but it was interesting because I even met a person last week and the word that came up in the description of my interaction with that person was just honor, right? It's like I couldn't say anything but honor about this person and this is a person who's going through broken relationships in their life and you're just like, oh man, underneath all the grime that we put on, sometimes if you could see underneath the mask to see who people really are, you can. That's what I've noticed in leadership. I remember I haven't had the blessed opportunity to go back and coach yet, but I got to support one time, and I got to come into the room where just it was part of a breakthrough exercise, and it's like you can just see people talking about the problems in your life. And it's like you can just see through all the masks, and you're like, oh, you're so much better than you think you are. I'm so excited for you to figure out how amazing you are because you're going to find out you are actually incredible. And maybe you've been believing some stuff that makes you feel less than, but it's not the truth. And we're going to get through to the truth. So that's
Yeah,
an honor.
like you said,
Such an honor.
it is an honor, and it's an honor really to see people in their highest good and in their highest level, and not
Yeah.
in the smallness that they sometimes see themselves in,
Yeah.
because that
I
smallness
know.
is not the truth. Yeah. And so it is a gift to be able also to see them in that, in their highest.
Yeah.
100%. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you see that. And I know that you are in our coach's container and you get to come coach with
I'm so
me
excited.
and
I'm
really
so
aid.
honored. Yeah.
That's going to be it's challenging work, as you probably have some idea of. It is challenging work, but it is so worthy, and it is such an honor to do, and it's a gift. It really is a gift to be able to be a part of that.
It
So I'm
is,
excited.
and it makes such a difference. It was really interesting because I was talking to one of my teammates from our January HCL 40, and she was talking about like she's been doing leadership training. She had done like very similar stuff before, and she was part of this organization where she just got everybody in the organization to go through the leadership training. And she said they started with like 125. This is um I'll mention her, Tammy Ryder Harms. You might remember her. She does a lot of work with youth. She helps youth. She has an organization that's built around helping prevent youth from addictions and suicide, and sort of like that lifestyle that no parent wishes on their children. And she has 100% success rate so far at like saving kids. And so like it's just has been such an honor to talk to her. But she was telling me this about how they were in this organization where they had like 125 people in the organization, and within a short period of time, over a few years, they'd built it up to like 600, and everybody went through the leadership training, and everybody loved working there. They had the lowest attrition, highest retention of employees, because they created a work environment where people wanted to be. And like, have you seen that? Can you speak to that? Have you seen that other places as well?
I wish I could say I have, but no, I have not seen that. I wish I could experience that, and I know that it's something that I can tell you I experienced it in my personal life, as
Yeah.
I've probably shared with you before, that I know within my relationship with my partner Brandy, we have both done the training, and I can speak to the transformation that's happened in our relationship
Please
because of that.
do. Can you tell us more about that, please? Yeah, that would be a
Yeah,
good place to.
100%. So, you know, it she was the one who enrolled me in leadership, and before our training, we had like no idea of being what being responsible meant in our relationships, and being responsible for our stuff, being responsible for how we feel. And so now we're going back into the responsibility conversation.
Good. Let's go there. That's essential.
Yeah. And probably like most couples, like typical couples, 90 to 95%, we like to blame our reactions on our partner and want to make them responsible for how we feel, and what they're doing is bothering us, rather than being responsible for our feelings. And that's where we were. I can say without a doubt that that's how we were, and that's how I had been in all of my previous relationships as well. And it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And so when we actually both were able to do the training, it wasn't perfect at first, and it's never probably going to be perfect. But at first, we were actually even kind of using the training against us, to like weaponize the training, like you're not being responsible, and accusing the
Yeah.
other of. And so we found ourselves in the same kind of blame game that
Right.
we were in before. And then no, we as we progressed in the training and realized we're still back in our old ways, we get to be responsible. So if I said something that I didn't mean to say, is a whole other story. But if I said something that hurt her, or I said something that was sarcastic or aggressive, like I got to clean it up. I got to come back and own my stuff, and own the way I feel, and own my reactions to whatever was going on in our relationship. And she got to do the same thing. And and that's led to like amazing shifts in our way of being, where we can quickly recognize, because it still happens, right? It still happens today,
We're still
where
human.
we're still human.
We didn't wave a magic wand when we went through like 4 months of training, right? We didn't like,
Right.
yeah,
So
I'm a
I
pro.
still like to say that I'm in a 10 on 10 relationship,
Mm,
because even though we might still go back occasionally to our patterns, we can still recognize it and still own it and still be responsible for it and still come back and clean it up. And to me, that's a 10 on 10 relationship, when
that's
I can be
awesome.
responsible for the stuff that I'm doing that doesn't work, and I can come back to my partner and own it, and she can do the same thing. Well, to me, that's a 10 on 10, because we're not perfect, right? Some days we're going to snap. Some days we don't have the patience anymore. Some days something sarcastic might come out of my mouth. And it
Oh
did
yeah.
this weekend. It did this weekend. And I got to clean it up. I got to come back and say, you know what? I was sarcastic and I'm sorry. And this is what was underneath it for me. And I just got to clean it up. I got to own my stuff,
Yeah.
and it's always well received when we come back from that place, rather than trying to blame our partner for how we felt, and we start to get into one of these discussions of who's at fault. And
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work.
Hmm.
Shifting into responsibility shifts our connection, and we also get to connect on an emotional level, because we get to say, you know what, here's what I was experiencing emotionally in the moment that led me to be the way I was being, and now I'm connecting on a whole other level with my partner. And
Hmm.
for me, that's a 10 on 10.
That I love that. I love that. What a perfect like bookend to this conversation. Because to me that comes back like that's a global that's a global game changing conversation, right? When we all learn these skills that like how to just be um generous with one another and to give each other grace, right? Like you're human, I'm human, I'm gonna mess up. So if you mess up and you just own it, you don't have to hide it, just own it. We can delete that and give each other grace and like move on. Like that's really,
It's so freeing. I can tell you, Trina, it's so freeing to be that way, that I don't have to hold on to resentment, because I would resent myself for being sarcastic before, and
yeah.
or I would be resentful of the way my partner was being that led me to being sarcastic. So like it's just so
Around and
freeing.
around, right?
It's just so freeing to not
Yeah.
hold on to that anymore and say,
Yeah.
you know what? Let go of the resentment, let go of the blame or the shame of being the way you were. Own it, just own it
Yeah.
and clear it. Yeah.
Just let it go. Let it go. What a great idea. That is awesome. Well, thank you, Eric, so much. I'm so excited. Just yeah, I really am honored. I really am honored. And I've told you this before, but I'd like to say this publicly. Like just how generous you are, how gifted you are, and your willingness to share that with us. Like I love it. It's just I'm so grateful. I am so grateful that, I know that if I'm struggling with something in my relationship, that there'll be wisdom, Eric or somebody else on my team is gonna be able to pour wisdom into me that will help me just change my mind about it, change the story that I'm telling it, right? Instead of the blame or, saying, "Oh, well, they made me feel this way." It's like, "Oh, I can be responsible. I'm in charge of me. I don't have to just because somebody did something a certain way doesn't mean I have to make up a meaning about it or react in a certain way. The reaction's my choice, right?"
Yeah.
And that's like that's such a blessing. So thank you so much for joining us today. Any
I
final
received that, and I honor your gifts as well. You have amazing relationship gifts as well, and I honor your openness to receive other gifts as well, because we also get to be open to receive the wisdom, and you are that. So I honor
Aw,
you too.
thank you. That's so funny. I started up a company years ago and what should we call it? Wise property. That's I like it. Wisdom is a great gift. It's one of the best ones. So thank you so much for joining us today, Eric.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome. I gotta find, oh, there we are.